Hello, my name's Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I have been through a divorce. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about BYU's Life After Divorce conference. They had that conference last weekend, so basically the first weekend of November, and long story short, it was fantastic. I'd like to talk a little bit about it today, and in short, encourage anyone who is either going through a divorce or who has been through a divorce and is still having challenges with relation to that, to go to this conference next year when they have it. It was really good. But let me just start with some of the logistics and the highlights. So the conference was held at BYU Provo in the BYU Convention Center. It was on a Friday and a Saturday, and it went all day, both days. There was, I don't know how many people went. I did talk to the woman who was in charge of the conference, and she said they had sold out, and they actually had to turn some people away just because they couldn't bring in more people. But if I had to guess, there must have been 400 people at this conference, which apparently was double last time's attendance, which is great. Obviously, it's fulfilling a need, and as the word gets out, more and more people are wanting to attend. It was kind of held in a format similar to, say, Education Week, where there were certain times when there was keynote speakers and other times where you had breakout sessions where you kind of had a program and you can see the list of classes and you got to select which classes you wanted to go to. Sometimes that's hard because there may be, you have 2 time slots open and the same people were presenting time slot, A and B. So you just kind of go between the two, but sometimes you had like 3 that you wanted to attend. And so that was a bit of a challenge, but that's a good challenge to have. I have made some friends who are divorced, and I was able to meet some of those friends there. We kind of all decided to meet there, and which really kind of helped make it a fun experience too, because we were able to talk about the various classes we went to, and then also discuss afterwards some of the things we had learned from the keynote speakers and others. So there is just a couple more logistical items. There is a fee to go to the conference. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was about $100. Just kind of covers the costs of the conference itself. A wonderful thing that they have is a sponsorship program or a scholarship program. So if sometimes when we go through divorce, some people are left fairly financially strapped. And so they do have a scholarship program you can apply for, which will cover the entrance fee into the conference. And my understanding is they can help you with both travel arrangements and lodging during that time as well. So you do have to apply for that and get granted it. But I thought that was a wonderful program that they do, because obviously when you're going through a divorce, some people really are left in a financially tough spot, but the help that this conference gives them is worth it. So I'm glad that BYU does that for people. Now, that being said, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the keynote speakers. They had some phenomenal keynote speakers. The first one that I particularly enjoyed was Elder Tad R. Callister, former member of the Quorum of the 12. He's actually written a couple of the books that I have behind me on my bookshelf here. He gave a talk on the healing power of the atonement, and it was a phenomenal talk. Just amazing talk. And then that was the Friday he was the Friday closing keynote speaker. I got to meet him really briefly. He and his wife, wonderful people. And it was great because I got to at least say, hey, I've read a couple of your books and I really did enjoy them. That was kind of a bit of a highlight for me. And then the next morning's keynote speaker was Gaina Lynn Condi. She has a podcast that I really like. I'd never heard of her prior to the podcast. But I've grown to like her. I've listened to her on other people's podcasts, plus her own podcast and everything over time. And I've really enjoyed her perspectives on things. Anyone who listens to her knows she talks a lot about the stewardship principle. She talked a lot about that with relation to divorce, but also with really any trial that we have in our life, you know, especially ones that are particularly difficult. You know, I don't think it's too much to say, but she, you know, her parents were divorced when she was a kid, and she talked about that and the effects that that had on her life and the life of her sister. And it was just an amazing, grounded talk that I particularly enjoyed. And then the final keynote speaker that I really enjoyed was the concluding keynote speaker, which was Sister Abuerto, who used to be in the Relief Society General Presidency until recently. She actually spoke about her divorce when she was younger in General Conference. And her talk was, again, really good. She talked a little bit about her divorce, the circumstance of her divorce, the trials, just the struggles of dealing with depression and the healing journey that comes from it. And now she's at a different place, obviously, in that she's remarried and has a whole family with her new husband. But she talked a little bit about the whole process of going through it all, and then the process of being encouraged to open up and speak about her experience. And that was it was again a wonderful talk. So of the keynote speakers, those were the three that I really enjoyed. Of the breakout sessions, I liked every breakout session I went to. So I have nothing negative to say about any of it. You know, I had some friends that went to some of the other ones that it's not that it was bad, it just really wasn't for them. And so, which was great because there was such a variety of topics that they talked about. They had ones that dealt with everything from betrayal trauma to finances, and, you know, restart, you know, kind of building a new life, to forgiveness, to, they were just all over the place. Some of the ones that I particularly enjoyed, there was one about blending families and some of the research that's been done and some of the things that they've learned through research on how to effectively blend families. I'm not in a position right now where I'm going to be blending my family, but I know that's going to be in my future somewhere. So I thought it was particularly interesting. And interesting in that was there's a group that it's through Utah State, and they work with the state of Utah, but they have a bunch of resources and courses that they've put together for blending families. And so I'll find that link, and I'll put that below in the description of this video, because, you know, sometime once we're past the divorce and once we're moving through the healing process, you realize there's going to be a point where you're going to get remarried, and that's an area that it can be scary because there's so many pitfalls and so many things that we just don't even think about that or at least in my case, I would say I've thought about, but I have no idea how to handle. And so the woman who presented that, her remarks were wonderful, and I will definitely be going through that kind of course that they have online for, I think it's a free course. So again, I'll put a link to that down below. There was another presenter who she spoke about kind of viewing the seasons of our life and kind of, which is something I had thought about before. So it wasn't new, but it was, I really liked the way that she presented it, and it made me think of things a little bit differently, and I really appreciated that. So I really enjoyed her class. There was another one that was fabulous about dealing with not just a former spouse, but anybody where that relationship is contentious and how to deal with that relationship. And she talked about the Lord's Law of War and what we've learned about that in the Book of Mormon and other scriptures, and how the principles from that we have to apply in our lives. And we have to, so we know, when is it time to turn the other cheek? When is it time to go to battle? When is it time to, and even if even when we're within the battle, how are we to act and react within that battle? And what are those principles so that we know that the Lord at least is on our side, so we can keep the Spirit with us during that time. It was a phenomenal talk. A lot of insights that I had never considered, or maybe it was, again, there's things that you kind of notice, but you don't, they're not brought to the forefront of your mind. They're kind of in the back. When she talked about some of the topics, it was like, oh yeah, I guess I have noticed that. I just never consciously thought about it. There was another one about communication, nonviolent communication that I really liked. And it was based on a book called Nonviolent Communication. And that's definitely a book I'll be reading. And there was a multitude of good courses in here. The one thing that I particularly enjoyed about the conference, all of the speakers, at least all the ones I went to, were either divorced themselves, so they've been through it, or they were like in Gaynell and Condi's case, her parents were divorced, so she's the child of that, or they were a PhD working in, there was a PhD psychologist who spoke, who I really enjoyed his talk. And he talked about mental health and emotional health and what the research is showing. And boy, there's a lot of I had a lot of misunderstanding about that. His presentation was wonderful. So they all had an expertise, whether it was through experience or through education. I didn't feel like there was a lot of, at least in any of the ones I went to, there was any fluff to it. It was all very good. And the courses ranged from, again, people who are like in the middle of the divorce. I met people there who are just in the middle of the divorce process, to people like me who are post-divorce, but still trying to learn and grow and understand and move through things. So there was classes for everyone there. So again, the beauty of the conference was, I think it provided hope for everybody. I think it provided a sense that, one, you're not alone. I mean, you're amongst all these people who have either been where you are or are going through what you're going through and have an understanding. But it also, in a multitude of ways, was just filled with hope. And hope with, tools that we can use to help us through there. Hope that comes through the Savior himself directly. And why and how, although some of us are in uncharted waters, we're an experience we never thought we'd have, the gospel of Jesus Christ still relates to us. Sometimes it's hard to see that. And there was one speaker who talked about that and why he chose to stay despite everything that was going wrong. And his talk was wonderful. So to me, the conference was a beautiful, wonderful thing. I would encourage anyone to go to it. I will put a link down below also to the notes for it, because they outline who all the speakers were, and then in many of them, they have outlines of their presentation they gave. And they recorded a number of the presentations, and my understanding is they're going to upload those so anyone can watch them. I just checked this morning, that hasn't happened yet, but I assume it may happen shortly. So again, they'll have this conference again next November. They have announced the dates for that. So anyone who, at least at this point, is in the divorce process or post-divorce, I strongly encourage you go. If you can, make the time. If you're really just strapped for cash, and that's an understandable thing, there is a scholarship program that may make it feasible for you to go. So I'd encourage you to look into that. I don't know when they're going to open up registration for next year's course. I just know, or meetings, but I know they've announced that they're doing them again next year. So again, my name is Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This channel is not endorsed by the church. All of my thoughts are my own. I'm no counselor. I'm no therapist. I'm just someone who's been through it and who hopes that what I share is helpful to people. Thanks for coming back to my channel.